Cheers, guys. Epics 911, welcome to the Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017 edition of VR News, and some really good VR news today, starting with confirmation from Bethesda finally, the release dates of their big three virtual reality titles. Let's start with the first of those, Skyrim VR, which we know unfortunately is only going to be on the PlayStation VR. That is going to launch November 17th. We're all hopeful, well, those of us without a PSVR, that other versions are going to be coming out later. Next title, Doom VFR. That's going to launch December 1st, and that'll be HTC Vive and PlayStation VR simultaneous launch. And then, of course, the last one, the one that I am absolutely jonesing for, Fallout 4 VR with a December 12th release date just for the HTC Vive. Again, hopefully that spreads to some other platforms in the future. Well, lots of speculation last week that Samsung was going to announce another Gear VR iteration. That's exactly what they've done, but nothing drastic. It looks like it's only going to be to accommodate the Note 8 from Samsung, which of course is the largest Note to date, 6.3-inch screen. So no other special features, basically just to accommodate that. No pictures of it yet. We're assuming it's going to be black in color and look very close to the current model. Next up, a nice side effect of HTC slashing the Vive's price by $200 US is that their share prices have reacted positively. They roughly went from 62 Taiwanese dollars to about 67. That's $2 US to roughly about $2.24 US. That represents about a 9% increase. Not too shabby. And in this story, Pico looks like they beat their competitors to the punch, releasing the Goblin. The Pico Goblin, which is powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 820, similar to the one used in quite a few smartphones. They are, however, using their own application ecosystem. Supposedly, that totals about 50 apps. Not sure what the split is between games, experience, and productivity, but 50, not a bad launch number. There's going to be no crossover with Daydream's apps or Gear VR's, though. Also, it uses a 2.5K display, and it's going to retail for $269 US. And it'll be interesting to see, even though the Pico Goblin is the first to market, can't wait to see how it competes with Google and Oculus when they launch their standalone HMDs in the near future. Next up, the Soulkeeper VR, a game that I was pretty critical about last week. Critical because it was the type of early access that I didn't want to get myself into, the type that's not stable and requires people who buy the game to act as testers. Now, I'm okay with that. I recognize that that is going to be part of the spectrum of early access. You're going to have tight ones and you're going to have ones not so tight. I just didn't want to have a not so tight one, so exercised the option to refund it. But in those 2 hours, I definitely saw some potential. Well, one of those was the fact that the devs meant what they said about updating frequently and updating big. They released their 1.1 update that fixes a metric crap ton of features and addresses issues that I came across, like I said, within those 2 hours. For example, they fixed the staff and sword, which when you equip them just felt awkward. Like you had to put your wrist at a really weird angle to swing and move your hand. It just didn't work. Apparently that's been rescaled and fits much better. They also added graphical settings, which in my opinion should have been something they launched with, but they did not. Anyways, that is in there. And a bunch of other stuff. If you want to see the full list, you can check that out via the link in the description below. One of the really cool things about virtual reality is its ability to mimic visuals. For example, humans. We've got advantages to how we see in our vision, and we've got disadvantages. Compare myself to my cat, for example, Cairo. All right? We're in the dark. He can see much better than me, about 6 times better, because cats have more rods than cones. In the daylight, though, his vision, especially for stuff a little further away, like 30, 40 feet away, not near as good as ours in terms of being able to resolve what we see at that distance. Also, colors. Trippy colors. That's pretty much a human forte, not something a cat is very good at because of not having many cones. They look at a field of grass, for example, and it's a slightly different shade of what snow looks like to them. Basically just another shade of grayish white light. Well, then you've got bats that can do really cool stuff like echolocate. Well, a lot of bat species can, in addition to having pretty cool visuals. This next game, Stifled, it deals with echolocation. It's been months since we talked about this game. It does some stuff that we've seen before. For example, the whole audio into the microphone. Nintendo did that on the DS, one of the launch titles. I think it was that dog one, and there were a few others that required you to put audio into the microphone. Well, this game's engine is based on exactly that. The more noise you make, the more gets illuminated around you in the form of line graphics. So for example, your regular walking noise is only going to outline a small area around you. Make louder noises and you're going to be able to see further into the distance and more detail into the distance. The problem with that though is the monsters in this game, they use your noise to find you. So the more noise you make, the more is revealed, but the higher the chance the monster catches you. There's a little bit of irony in that because you're going to see most of the world when you're basically getting torn to pieces by the monsters in the game. So it's a dance of a balancing act to make enough noise to explore, but not enough to get caught. Road to VR writer Scott Hayden, he had a hands-on with this PlayStation VR title and indicated some cool things. Like, for example, nobody wants to sound like an idiot in their house and say the same word every 10 seconds to illuminate stuff in this game. Thankfully, Scott's confirmed that you can map a ping sound to a button, and then you just have to hit that button, generate that noise to get the world drawn around you. It was originally a Rift Vive title, but then got postponed. They were going to do some additional development, and it was somewhere during that time that Sony approached them and they entered into an exclusivity agreement. Hopefully it still gets released on those other platforms, but first up, PlayStation VR, and that's going to be sometime between now and the 2017 holiday season. We haven't really seen games touch on a lot of these visuals. Take Ghost Recon or Rainbow Six, for example. You've got stuff like thermal vision, infrared, night vision. Imagine a virtual reality game with that, to be immersed completely in thermal or night vision. I think it would be freaking awesome. Have an exploration-based game with all of that in and be immersed in it. I can't wait till we see something like that. In the meantime, it's going to be games like this that give us little snippets of what that would be like. Well, guys, that's it for the news on this Wednesday. Hump Day, pretty much behind us. The weekend draws near. Guys, as always, cheers.